Hello and welcome to the One Life Church devotional series where we cover the entire Bible in 20 months. Well, today's chapters are Ezekiel 24 and 25. Now, I'm trying something a little different today. It's early in the morning. It's 4:30. I'm about to head off to Joburg with a bunch of young guys to a pastor's conference. And I've got this new light, which hopefully is going to help me do recordings at night. And nighttime is a good time to do this one because this is that terrible and terrifying siege of Jerusalem taking place. This is what happens in the first verse. God's message comes to Ezekiel on the 15th of January, 588 BC. And God says to him, take note of the date. This is the day the siege begins. And basically this chapter has two sections to it. A boiling pot and the death of the prophet. So the boiling pot, he's told, get a pot, put all sorts of meat in it. Now, our memory must go back surely to Ezekiel 11, when those in Jerusalem said, we are the choice meat, and the others have been thrown away. We're the choice cuts. And God says, now I'm going to put you inside this pot. He remember, God he dealt to them in Ezekiel 11, and he said to them, no, the remnant that is in Babylon are the ones I'm going to use. He was basically saying, you guys aren't the choice cuts. You are the butchers. And because of that, I'm going to put the bones in the pot. I'm going to put the meat in the pot. And he says, boil it up and cook it. Boil it up and burn it. And the dregs pour out. And then carry on burning it. Just let it burn. And have you ever had meat burn like that? The stench is terrible. And he's basically saying, this is what's going to happen with the siege. Now, what had happened was, you might say, well, why is God going to great lengths to get their attention? Well, they weren't listening. They had been believing the false prophets. The false prophets have been saying, God will never mess with Jerusalem. It's his holy place. His presence is here. He's not going to mess with it. And so they believed the false prophets and lived a lie. Many people today are believing that their money will secure them. The good people that are leading the world are going to look after this world. This world's going to be fine. You read the book of Revelation. Remember, we did that a couple of months ago. It's not going to be fine. People need to turn to God. Now, there is an even more dramatic sermon illustration than the boiling pot. God tells Ezekiel that your wife is going to die. And when she dies, he's given 1 day's warning that she's going to die. And when she dies, you're not to mourn publicly, you mourn silently, which is very different for Jewish people. Now, a quick study of the different wives of the prophets is quite fascinating. When Abraham was called a prophet, and his wife, he lied about her twice. Moses was criticized for the Midianite that he took as a wife. Jeremiah was not allowed to marry because he was to be a statement to say it's not worth bringing children into this world. Hosea married a wife who became a prostitute. And now this guy, Ezekiel, preaches in the morning, gives the message to the Jews in the morning. In the evening he comes home, his wife dies. And this is what it says in verse 16. The prophet's wife was the joy of his life and the desire of his eyes, but the Lord took her away. And basically he was saying this: the temple in Jerusalem is the joy of the Jewish people. No other nation had a sanctuary like that. But now the Lord will take the temple away. And on the 14th of August, 586 BC, the Babylonians set fire to the temple in Jerusalem and desecrated it. Now you might ask the question, why does God allow Ezekiel's wife to die? Well, firstly, the death of God's saints is not the tragedy that everyone thinks it is. Precious in his sight are the death of his saints. In addition to that, who knows what she was being spared? Anyway, God was using her to speak to the people. Her death was a huge sermon, the most powerful sermon of the time, actually. Now, Ezekiel 25 is prophecies against four nations that had ridiculed Israel and come against Israel. First, the Ammonites, who had said, aha, the temple is desecrated. Prophesied against them, saying, trouble is coming to you. The Moabites, who said, look at Judah, they become like other nations. Trouble is coming to you. The Edomites, who took revenge on Judah and became guilty of doing so, God says there's going to be trouble on you. And then the Philistines, because the Philistines acted with vengeance against Israel. God says there's going to be trouble for you. And so while Israel was sieged, those who were used to torment and discipline Israel, they themselves were going to be disciplined. Well, that's quite a way to start a morning. I'm heading off to Johannesburg, and we'll see you tomorrow.